Hello and welcome to the Parenting Business bonus episode on the budget. Rachel Reeves' budget was announced today, although with this coming out on Thursday, it'll be yesterday. Ben and myself have just decided to have a little bit of a chat about our thoughts on it, how we think it went. But first of all, Ben, what I want to know is we released our very first podcast a couple of days ago. You got some feedback from people that have listened to it, so tell me about it.
Yes, good evening from Hucknall. So I'm in a couple of networking groups, as you say, and I put it on a couple of those, and we were very pleased to hear one lady mention to me that it was a fair effort for a first go. We'll take that. Another who actually gave us some pretty good bits of feedback on it. We're aware anyway, aren't we, that we interrupted each other a little bit, and we're trying to be a bit more structured as we go, because the other day we just rambled on and it lacked a bit of structure. But any other feedback, please don't be afraid. We have thick skins. Say it how it is, and we'll take it on board. I think one of the fans from the episode we put out, was it yesterday morning? My mother's wrote in to criticise your grammar, Stuart, and it's about time I had a shave. My wife mentioned that I took credit for taking Stanley to hospital when I didn't. She did. I can't actually remember exactly what I said, but point taken there. I've been well and truly slapped down. But largely, I had fun. Quite enjoyed doing it, and if you guys enjoy listening to it half as much as I've enjoyed making it, I think we'll carry on. But for now, we'll keep babbling on a little bit and see if we can improve a little bit and take it from there, mate.
Yeah, and I kind of echo that. It's nice. I'm pleased to hear that your mum's giving us some really good feedback. And tell her I will sort out my grammar. My grammar's terrible, so I'll get on top of it. And on a podcast, you can't hide anything. So your wife, certainly give it to her. Give it to her. One thing I will say about tonight's bonus episode is that, Ben, you're looking huge on the video. I will tell everybody that we did have a few technical issues, didn't we, with your laptop?
We is the wrong term. I have technical issues because I have no clue about technology at the best of times, and for some reason my camera wasn't working. So we are recording my half of this at least on a very old, very poor, very cheap Samsung, and we will battle on, and my big head doesn't put too many people off. Then that'll be a bonus while I figure out my camera issues before next week's go. I will just mention we were hoping to have an accountant on, and the gentleman I wanted to use, who we're very close with, sums up exactly what we're trying to do here. He's short-staffed, he's working extra hours, and this evening he's got to go to Beavers and then swimming. By the time he comes back, he's got to do a couple more hours to make up for him being short-staffed. That is exactly the problems we all face and we all want to hear about. So we will get him on at a later date, hopefully, if he's still very willing. And something I asked for his opinion on what he think the budget might be, and this time yesterday he sent me what he thinks, and it basically, the message is on my phone, I've got to try and remember that it was basically, we're all going to get fucked over, brace for impact. So if you are searching for an accountant at the minute and want one with their finger purely on the economic pulse, I can recommend an old professional who says it how it is, which is what I personally like to hear. With no further ado, over to you, and we'll get into it, shall we?
What I want to know, Ben, though, is
yes,
surely beavers and swimming kind of go together and could have been done at the same time.
It is if you only had one child.
No, I was more thinking of the fact that can't beavers swim?
Oh, I see. Very good. I missed that analogy.
Sorry,
there.
Yeah, the dad jokes are coming out already as well.
Yeah, well, they are, but we love a dad joke, don't we? We are dads after all.
And just before we go on to the next bit, to talking about the budget and our thoughts on it, please remember that you can subscribe. We are now available on all major podcast and video podcast platforms. So you should be able to find us across various different platforms. Do please press subscribe, leave us a review, leave comments. We will follow them up and we will act on them. So without, I suppose, any further ado, let's go on to Rachel Reeves' budget today. Ben, what's your initial thoughts?
A minor sigh of relief. We have had 6 or 7 weeks of anticipation, knowing we're going to get some bad news, but quite how bad, we don't know. And I don't know about your place, Stuart, but my little factory's order book has been in the negative territory. Most people I speak to are similar. They're down on last year, and as well as our stock markets and our little portfolios there are all braced for anticipation. So it was nice to see a little bit of a easing of the worry, even though it started with a cock up to for the history books, wasn't it? The OBR leaking the Chancellor's speech an hour before she starts talking is unheard of. On Sky News, Beth Rigby was speechless, so at least there's one good outcome out of it. But the long and short of it is when she did start talking and confirming several things, yes, there's some tax rises that we all knew were coming, another 28 billion for us to stomach paying up from somewhere. It didn't move the dial too much. There was no surprising announcements, no radical change in policy as such. There was a freezing of income tax thresholds as opposed to a new tax entirely or something totally radical that will hit inflation or the farmers or whatever else. So that was pleasing to hear. My view on the Chancellor herself, she's in a rock and a hard place a little bit because there hasn't been fiscal headroom for some years now. We all know that. There are rumours coming out fairly often in the last couple of weeks that the Labour Party aren't happy with Mr Starmer. So they had to do something to please the backbenchers to try and stave off a potential coup or something which gives them a fighting chance in the May council elections. I know that's a way off, but at this point, we're not sure the government's going to last that long, so she had to do something there. Equally, she had to soothe the markets and get a little bit of confidence in. Personally, there's plenty in the budget I wasn't so keen on, and there's some that I am happy enough with. I graded the budget itself sort of 5, 6 out of 10, but given the position she's in, dancing on a pinhead, I think she's done pretty well. I think she's done 8 or 9 out of 10 from her personal standpoint. Just there is hardly any productivity gains in our economy for years now. There is very little there talking about reducing spending. It was all as last year on the increase the tax rises, which you'd think she'd learned a little bit about the Laffer curve, and the more you raise the tax, quite often the less the income actually comes in from it. However, given the situation where she's got the backbenchers to please, I'll take today. I'll take that. Bit more confidence in the markets. I'll take that. So no, we're not jumping for joy, but when you say, how do I think about it? And I'll take 3 minutes to waffle on. We'll live with it. We'll cope with it, won't we? We'll be all right.
Yeah, and I actually think she delivered it very well, considering the
Did it okay today?
Hock up, the complete fiasco of it being fully leaked beforehand.
Yes.
I think the delivery was good. For me, it didn't go far enough in the right places. There was nothing major. So yeah, I think it was okay. I wasn't blown away by anything. There was nothing that I felt was groundbreaking. There was nothing that was going to make any major changes to me as a business owner.
No,
to me as a parent of one child. But obviously you've got 3 children. So what was your thought on the
lifting
of the removal of the
child
cap?
benefit? I see both sides of this argument. Our children are the future of the country, and there's a reasonable argument for funding that more and supporting that more. Equally, as a taxpayer, the line has got to be drawn somewhere. So I kind of see the argument for both sides on that one. I'm fairly neutral on it, if I'm honest. I think the biggest gripe I have, and I've had it this similar for years, we need value for money in whether it's our public services or our own businesses, our own expenditure, our own consumer behaviours. And we've been paying for a 4-star service and getting a 2-star service in terms of what we see in the public sector a lot. The tax take burden as a proportion of GDP is going to go up now to 38%. And I personally think that needs to be a lot closer to 30%. So the way to go was look at how we're spending our money. In 2019, for example, the welfare budget was £222 billion for the year 2019. Would you like to have a guess what it is this year?
It's got to have skyrocketed. We've got to be over 300, over 350.
15 billion is this year's number.
Yeah.
That's what, 40%, 25%, or 24.6% for what I've got in front of me, of every pound we give the exchequer is spent on that. Now, I've not looked at detail into exactly everything and every pound and where it's spent, and I'm certainly no expert on it. But for something to go up by that much in such a short space of time, well, we need to be looking at some of that. Overall productivity from our public sector, the amount of output we get per head, is woeful. It is in the private sector as well. When you go back a couple of decades, we were neck and neck with the rest of Europe and with the Americans in terms of what we earned as an average per head. The Americans are now 40% ahead of us as an average. Yeah. We are, not looked at this today, it was a little while ago, we are something like $43,000, not pounds, dollars per head in terms of our output. The Americans are now up to 64, I believe. So our average as a United Kingdom is the same as the average of the lowest earners in America. We've not kept up productivity. And if productivity is higher, if our output is higher, you can keep the tax rates the same and cream more money. And so it's disappointing not to see too much to be done around that yet again.
And I think, that was something that, I was surprised around our productivity, and certainly around youth. I've been a huge advocate through my life of youth development and, reducing unemployment in young people, that sort of stuff. And I was quite disappointed. It was interesting that youth unemployment and unemployment overall is getting higher and higher and higher. And yet we seem to be just increasing the welfare budget. And whilst unemployment's increasing, and there didn't seem to be anything specifically in that budget to really tackle unemployment. There was, as you and I spoke about earlier, there was the talk of apprenticeships now being free for employers or at no cost to employers. But actually, I'm not sure that's going to have a huge effect on small business. I think it's going to help a bit, and it might get a few back into employment, a few young people back into employment, because I noticed it specifically targeted the under 25s. However, I think back to programs like Kickstart, that was a government funded program that actually paid employers or covered the cost of particularly small businesses taking on long-term unemployed. That disappeared and has never come back. Something like that being funded again, to me, would have a much bigger impact on our economy than just doing things that I suppose promote, or not promote, but support remaining unemployed.
Agreed. And although money's tight, that is quite an expensive thing to do at a time when money's tight. But if they're on universal credit anyway, surely it could be considered. Back in the 1960s, my grandma had to pay the business my father did his apprenticeship with, because the young apprentice is not only not earning anything for the business he's in, he's slowing down the experienced team.
Yeah.
So we now have to pay apprentices, which is one thing. Everyone's got to earn a living and pay bills, so okay. And as of today, we don't have to pay for them to go and do the college side of the apprentice course, which is helpful. I just don't think it moves the needle very much at all.
No, I don't think it's a big enough impact.
It's not.
What about, what's your thoughts on minimum wage increases and the freeze on tax and that sort of stuff?
Minimum wage increases are deserved, and we're hoping it'd help the universal credit bill somewhat. I think there's an element of we're trying to incentivize work, and that's a step in the right direction. I also think there's a balance to be struck, because larger employers will move more towards automation. We've already seen the cashiers in supermarkets, the robots do the warehousing at Amazon warehouses to some extent now. That will be accelerated the more expensive the wage is. So it's a tricky one to get the balance right. Very tricky. I don't have the answer there. I pay not too bad my staff anyway. I try and do the average wage for the skilled guys. And unfortunately, the new guys who are new obviously don't earn the business very much. We make a loss on them for the first 3, 4, 5 months. So that's going to cost me more. The losses are going to widen on new staff, as is some of the regulatory burden from Angela Rayner's new employment laws. So that navigating that isn't as straightforward as it used to be, could be. However, people do deserve to be paid more sometimes. We've got to take that on the chin as well. 4%, it's in line with inflation, isn't it? Nothing else. The tax take would increase because we're keeping the thresholds the same, even though People are getting a pay rise, so there'll be a little bit more for the exchequer without moving inflation too much. It's a tricky one, isn't it? I expect unemployment to be higher than it need to be because of it. But if people are earning more, that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. But for me, as an employer, as a small business, it's going to put my NI bill up. With the freeze in rates, it's now going to cost me more to employ staff.
Yes, again, that was a big.
They're going to get taxed. They're going to get taxed effectively entirely on their pay increase. They're not going to have any free pay anymore.
They're now going to be taxed. Sorry. Yeah, they're now going to be taxed on the pension contributions as well, if it's above £2,000, which there's an element of, in order to put £2,000 towards your pension a year, you have to be earning quite well anyway. There's an argument you could probably afford it. I don't quite know that. But it's another thing on the list of a reason not to employ somebody.
And this is the other thing that I found really interesting, and it isn't just about people that are employed. And I read this, I'm no expert on it, but state pension is currently circa £12,000.
Okay.
When state pension goes up, pensioners will start to pay income tax on state pension.
And the other thing with income tax, which is interesting, today, from my experience, and maybe yours as well, I don't know, I'm going to get machinists now more keen to be a part-time staff than full-time staff in order to pay less tax.
Yeah.
So how does that help?
However,
work out the door.
What it does mean that on a minimum wage employee will now start paying tax at 18 hours a week.
18, is it? Okay.
Just 18 hours a week, and they'll start paying tax. So
whereas if they do less than 16 hours a week, they're entitled to universal credit. Is that correct?
I think, there's something around that
Please write in.
They get some sort of entitlement. Yeah, I'm no expert. And that's why an accountant would have been really handy to this evening.
That would have been wonderful, wouldn't it? But he's currently at Beavers.
So what about business rates though? There was the announcement, and this was something that kind of got me a little bit, around these lower business rates for retail, leisure and hospitality. But for me, as a manufacturer, nothing about manufacturing, nothing about support for SME manufacturers specifically. Particularly
no one cares about you.
For me, well, particularly when the government are supposedly they're trying to strengthen British manufacturing in the MOD supply chain, and SMEs in particular. And they're talking about all of this, and they want SMEs to grow because we need to be manufacturing more here, so we're not as reliant on other countries. Where was the support for me? Where was the support for SMEs in manufacturing?
Yeah, no one cares about SMEs in manufacturing. At least the farmers are kicking off now because they're about to get their turn, or have been getting their turn in the last year, which is very, very sad for me to say. But they're only experiencing what British industry has already been through, in my view.
Yeah.
Good for them to have their say, but where was the factories having their say a decade ago? I think there's a running theme with this Chancellor, bless her. She wants to improve the amount of IPOs and she wants to improve the stock market participation. So what we're going to do, we're going to tax dividends more.
Yeah.
Well, where's the sense in that if you're trying to improve retail investors' market participation? If you're trying to encourage more people to list at the London Stock Exchange, we're going to encourage you to list on the London Stock Exchange by taxing everybody more. Yep. Off they go to America again. We've had that for a while now. And this pro-growth chancellor's my number one target. My number one aim is to grow the economy. So what we're going to do? Very little. Apprenticeships and business rates. That was pretty good. What else you got? That was it.
What do you think is going to be?
Right.
Yeah. What do you think is going to be the effect on retail, leisure and hospitality, though, with these lower business rates? Do you think it's going to have a genuine impact? I kind of don't.
I don't think it's going to increase footfall in the high street. I don't think it's going to increase footfall in the high street. But if they save a few grand a year and that helps them keep the wolf from the door, then it's got to be a positive, isn't it? I can tell you the share price of Greggs the Bakers did nearly 5% today on the news that the high streets might have more strength to it. I think it's been a reasonable day for the markets as a whole because we've just had a sigh of relief. There's nothing wonderful here that's going to amaze us. Never going to be. But if that's how bad it's going what she delivered is, if that's the worst it's going to be, we can sulk about it, but it's not great. I mean, the great British people can go back to moaning about the weather now, can't they? 'Cause we've not heard much about the weather this last month. It's all been the Chancellor and the budget. So get it over with and get back on with the normal day-to-day, and hope our order books improve a smidge. That'd be nice.
Something else I found really interesting was this whole thing around electric vehicle tax. I saw that and I kind of thought, hold on, this goes completely against what I believe the government were trying to do and governments around the world are trying to do, and that's get rid of petrol and diesel cars and hit targets for lower emissions. And I calculated out that this 3 pence per mile charge that would be levied as a road tax, I guess, on electric vehicles actually makes an electric vehicle more expensive to tax than a petrol or diesel vehicle. If you do 10,000, 15,000 miles a year, and it doesn't take into account also, the expense of the vehicle. It's a blanket across all vehicles. So whether you're driving a little Renault Zoe or whether you're driving a high-end Tesla or BMW, you're paying the same to use the road just based on how far you drive, and you're potentially paying less in road tax than a petrol or diesel car. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's a wonderful idea for all the car manufacturers that are struggling to sell any cars at the minute. Let's make them even more expensive. I think there's a lot of people who may fancy a new motor and they've not wanted to because they don't know what the economy holds, and you've got to sign on the line for 600 quid a month for 5 years or whatever, or 3 years. I don't know. I've never bought a car on finance, but I think motor manufacturers are really struggling to sell new motors. A lot of new ones are hybrid or electric. Now, granted, electric vehicles do weigh a lot more and do a bit more damage to the roads, and we need to repair the roads as it is. But yeah, I'm not terribly impressed on that one. If I was a motor manufacturer, we've got enough struggles. Motor manufacturers work on very thin margins anyway.
Yeah.
To hit demand.
How does this is a theory I kind of came up with having heard that when you compare that road tax being implemented on electric and hybrid vehicles, but yet rail fares have been frozen.
Well,
do you think this is a stealth way to try and get us off the road and onto trains?
Yeah, perhaps. Well, yes, but I would love to see the data there. 75% approximately of rail journeys either start or end in London.
Yeah.
So we're heavily subsidising people travelling to London for work. And I'm not against that, but I'd like to see the maths on how many commuters are going to benefit, how much are they going to benefit by, how much is it going to cost a taxpayer, and what's the average earnings of those that's benefiting.
Yeah.
So if keeping them working on high salaries, if it's going to cost £1, but they're going to earn the exchequer £5, I'm all for it. So I don't know where I stand on that one until I've seen the maths. If there are the maths being done and made available, but it's an HS2. Let's all just get to London quicker. Well, what about we've still not electrified the Midland Main Line, have we?
No, and I think that's something that I've always had a bee in my bonnet about, the fact that they reduced HS2's link.
Yes.
Up to the East Midlands and more towards the northeast as well. They dropped that. I think that's going to be a discussion that we'll have on another episode.
Well, maybe.
Because I think we can open a whole can of worms around that.
Well, yeah, and just while you've got me on my soapbox, the study they did proved the biggest benefit of HS2 between the stretch between Birmingham and Manchester. So when they look to slash costs, what do? Let's just do London to Birmingham. I mean, bloody hell.
Yeah. I was quite impressed, though, if we move away from Rachel Reeves and go across to the opposition, to Kemi.
Yes.
I was quite impressed by her response.
Yes.
I thought she handled the response really well.
I think she did very well. I don't quite know where. We've not had this conversation yet on how we're going to stand on a political footing. I dare say we shouldn't tread too deep into the realm of politics.
I suggest we try and stay apolitical.
But the hit back was certainly forceful.
It was very robust.
Robust. That's quite another excellent term. I think the biggest test of economic credibility is what the gilt markets do. That's the 10-year borrowing costs of your economy. And we all remember a decade or so ago, we were almost, laughing's probably the wrong word, but there were certainly jokes made against the pigs of Europe, Portugal, Ireland, Greece and Spain. As of today, the UK is paying 4.5% on a 10-year gilt bond per year. You know what it is in Greece?
Probably. I'm sure I read somewhere that it was that we're paying more than Greece.
So
Yeah.
we're paying a reasonable chunk, like 25%. We are in the international markets. Our economy is viewed 20%, 25%. I should have done the maths before we came on, but significantly riskier than Greece. Well done to the Greeks is where I am with that one. But what the hell are we playing at as well? 4.5% for a gilt bond.
I don't think it's very often that we can say well done to the Greeks. Yeah, it does.
Not since
It does
Alexander the
paint
Great.
a picture that we're not in a good place.
It does paint that picture. But half of Europe is similar. The French are similar. I mean, the Americans aren't too wonderful, although because they've got the reserve currency, they can get away with it a bit better. But it's not a great advert.
Okay, so as we come up towards the end of this podcast,
Mm.
what's your one takeaway as a parent and as a business owner?
As a parent, I am of the opinion it's important that I educate my children in financial literacy and provide something tangible for their future, so we're not relying on the state of the UK economy to do that for me, is where I am. I think
Yeah.
financial independence, but also if it all hits the fan, mate, here's something you can use for your benefit. Quite how we do that, again, it's a topic for another day, and I dare say we need some expertise on, but not relying on the job for the future, I think, is what I take away from a chunk of that. And for my little businesses as a whole, we've just got to hunker down and not do anything risky. And if trade's going to be a bit lower, plan that into your forecasts. Because
Yeah, I agree.
I'll tell you what, I'm just going to mention something else. You know, if you go back to, let me get it right, I've not planned this one. 79, the Conservative Party came in with Margaret Thatcher, like her, loathe her, somewhere in the middle, whatever. She came in 1979. In 1992, there was a leadership change, and in 1997, they were voted out. 18 years of stable government. You might not like everything they did, but you knew where they were going, what they were trying to achieve. Tony Blair comes in 1997. Same thing. Nice and stable, nice and steady for a decade. What's Tony Blair going to do? It was all there. He didn't chop and change. Education, education, education. Right, what products can I sell to universities because they're going to have loads of cash? You knew what that government was going to do. Even when Gordon Brown took over, the 3 years he had, was it 3 years? He didn't move too much from what Tony Blair was doing. We've not had that since 15 years. You had the coalition, which tried to make compromises, and God bless everybody for trying, but didn't really achieve anything because we're all compromising over everything. And since then, it's been, trying to pick my term other than woeful. There's been some very smart and credible people, but it's just the Brexit hasn't been handled very well. Whether you'll leave or remain or whatever, leaving, I can cope with that, absolutely fine, happy enough. There's advantages of being in, there's advantages of being out. It has been handled terribly. We've gone from one problem to the next, one issue to the next, one cock-up to another. COVID, nobody's fault. Global pandemic. May not have been handled very well at times. Global pandemic. We're on the way out of that now, hopefully. And what do we get? More tumultuous. No one knows what's happening. Stability is the biggest thing I'm asking for. And we can all make our plans, good or bad, around the stable business environment. And we've just not had it for a decade and a half, have we?
I think for me it is that stability. I think I've taken from this budget as a parent. I think you're exactly right that it's education around financial independence, about that financial stability and creating your own financial stability, because we're not currently getting it from a government. And I think it's much more from a business perspective. It's just business as it has been. I think the stability isn't there from what I've seen in the budget, but it's nothing too crazy. So I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, pushing hard to get the customers and pushing hard to keep the business coming in and keep staff happy, keep staff employed. What was really interesting, I did see today or hear about today, was a business local to both of us that actually contacted one of my employees. She used to work for them. They actually contacted her to say, would you like a job? Because we want you back. They want her back because a few weeks ago they made everybody redundant, or a lot of staff redundant. because they had no orders. They've now got orders, but don't want to employ the staff that they've just paid a massive redundancy bill to, because it looks bad on them as they see it. I think that they jumped the gun, and I think there are a few businesses kind of jumping the gun rather than just settling down, ride it out, and just keep working, because I think it will get better if we just keep pushing.
I think the medium and long term will be just fine. Focus on your cash flow and your cash reserves, and you might have to ride out a bit of a storm, but hopefully now the budget's been, we're all settling down and can get on with life until she makes some more announcements next year.
If she's still in post next year.
She's made a good stab at staying in today, hasn't she? I think so. We'll see.
She has, and I think, time will tell what will happen within the party. The whole of government will see if that's subdued some of their own backbenchers, and let's see what happens and keep trucking on. If you've had any impact from the budget, or you've got things to say, leave us a comment on whatever platform you listen to us on. We will follow it up. We may pick it up in the next episode. It would be really good to hear your thoughts, maybe as a parent, as a business owner, or just generally. Even if you're neither of those, get in touch. Do remember to hit subscribe, follow us, and give us a rating as well on whatever platform you listen to. It all really, really helps us grow. And as Ben said at the start, any feedback on how we can develop the podcast. This is our podcast, but we want you to enjoy it. We want you to get something out of it, rather than necessarily just our ramblings. In future, we are looking to have guests, or we are going to have guests that have hopefully got a bit more expertise than us on certain topics, and we shall go from there. Anyway, I think it's time to say bye, and we look forward to seeing you on the next podcast.
I might just sign off with try not to worry too much about things that are out of your control. You can't control the size of the storm, but you can focus on building a better ship.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great way to end.
Well, yeah, with that, we'll sign off, and may the fleas of 1,000 camels infest the anus of those who stand against us. Until next week, good night.
Brilliant, Ben. Good night.